So this is a reasonable hand. Um, Definitely gonna keep. We have our a lot of one mana plays here. But that's natural for this deck. It's natural for the format. Um, so we're gonna want to start out most likely on Delver, but we'll see how our opponent leads off. Looks like it's gonna be a Sacred Foundry. Um, so we don't know if that means an aggressive deck or not. So we could go ahead here and shock ourselves with this Polluted Delta. We could also Jataxian probe our opponent to see what's going on. And I like that a lot. So let's go ahead and probe. Even though we could be against burn, it looks like we're not. So we see a Journey to Nowhere and a Chandra Torch of Defiance. Interesting. So we know that if we play the Delver right now, it could get met with a Journey to Nowhere. Um, so rather than doing that, I think I like just playing the Delta and passing the turn here. We do have Spell Snare, which we could potentially set up. Although it looks like our opponent just drew something, so we'll see what that is. To Chalice of the Void. And alright, so what we're going to do here is crack our fetch land. And we can go ahead and spell snare that chalice. So we're really happy that we took this line and we're getting paid off for it. So we drew Young Pyromancer. Pretty good draw. So now that we have the Pyromancer, I like leading out with the Delver. Basically, we're not going to be unhappy if our opponent Journey to Nowhere's the Delver, because the Young Pyromancer is a better threat. And so there is the Journey to Nowhere. And one reason we got the basic island there is to help protect ourselves against a potential Blood Moon. So there's a Serum Visions off the top. We know about the Chandra sitting in our opponent's hand. So that is definitely something to keep in mind here. But let's go ahead and Serum Visions. See what we can pick up and hopefully set up some land drops for the next couple turns. So there's a Gurmag Angler, and also a Darkslick Shores. So we definitely want to prioritize the Darkslick Shores. The Angler, we can put that on top, and we'll see if we actually want it or not. Basically, but we want the Darkslick Shores for sure. And if our opponent does opt to play Chandra here, we've got a couple options in terms of how we want to attack it. But it looks like Chandra is not going to be the play. So we can go ahead and run out our Darkslick Shores and now play the Young Pyromancer. And one of these Thought Scours we can play to trigger the Pyromancer. I think we actually want to draw the Gurmag Angler so we can target our opponent with the Thought Scour. It's going to give us an elemental. And we see. So now we've drawn an Angler. We're drawing lots of good stuff. And our opponent has yet to get that Chandra into play. So this is a pretty good spot. This Terminate is basically a dead card, but that's okay. Alright, so now I think we want to go ahead and Thought Scour, and then we can potentially follow that up with a Gurmag Angler. And there's a probe, so now we can actually see what's going on in our opponent's hand. Maybe our opponent has multiple Planeswalkers. Let's see. Oh wow, yep. That's the only thing that really makes sense. So it's double Gideon Jura, double Chandra, Torch of Defiance. So quite a bad hand, really, that our opponent has, and we can take advantage of that. Um, so let's go ahead and play out this Gurmag Angler. And yeah, I don't see how our opponent gets out of this situation. That Temple of Triumph, it's just too late. They had hit their fourth land drop on time, it would have been interesting. But now our board is just so strong. We can Lightning Bolt our opponent, get another Elemental, and let's see. So we're definitely going to attack with everything. It looks like that's going to bring our opponent down to 2. So let's just go ahead and make it easy for our opponent and finish this game off. All right, so moving on to the sideboard, we want to be prepared for hateful cards like Blood Moon. Um, we already saw Chalice of the Void. That's something we have to be aware of. We can we can even look to board in a card like Shatterstorm if we want to for this matchup. We can also look at Painful Truce. We do have 2 Colligan's commands, so the Shatterstorm probably not necessary. Counter Squall we definitely want. Engineered Explosives for sure. Um, so a lot of good options. Even Collective Brutality we would probably want to board out if it was non-creature spell, but this card is not. It's just instant or sorcery. So the explosives and the counter squall for sure. Painful Truce I also like. A lot. We want to board out a lot of our spot removal. So Murderous Cut, Terminates, and then probably some bolts would be cards we should look at to sideboard out. I'm fine with boarding in a Desolate Lighthouse. Um, so yeah, this looks actually pretty solid, this configuration. Although we do have this one main deck Brutality, and I don't really like Collective Brutality in the matchup. We definitely don't want our opponent to get a Chalice into play. All right, I guess we just play some bolts. Bolts aren't great in this matchup because our opponent is pretty unlikely to have any creatures in play. Um, we're if we lose, it's probably going to be to the planeswalkers, but the lightning bolts they can go after our opponent's face and threaten opposing planeswalkers, which is nice. So here we go. No black mana, so we don't have a probe, which is a little bit unfortunate. I think I like passing the turn here. We know about Chalice of the Void, which we're scared of, and we can pretty safely pass the turn here rather than playing our Delver. And there's a Rest in Peace, so that's also a card we want to Spell Snare. We do not want to let that card resolve. And now we drew a second Delver, so I like actually just committing both Delvers to the battlefield and getting a clock on our opponent. If we immediately flip and our opponent doesn't play removal, we can just win the game with these Delver of Secrets potentially. That's our A plan. Now, all right, so it looks like our opponent is gonna just be passing the turn here potentially. So let's see what we got here. This could be a big flip. And it's Steam Vents, so not what we wanted. But we have Snapcaster plus Spell Snare if our opponent tries to play another 2-mana card, or alternatively, we still have Electrolyze, which we can play this turn. So, looks like our opponent is kind of hesitant. Might have a removal spell. Has not played it yet. There's a delayed Lightning Helix, so this is actually the opportunity we may have been looking for. I like just running out the Snapcaster Spell Snare right now. So let's go ahead and go for it. And now we've got 3 creatures on the board, so even more pressure. And okay, so this could be another. So yep, it's another removal spell. We'll see if our opponent goes for one of the Delvers. It looks like that is what going to be the play. So let's see if we can get this one to flip. Nope. But we did hit a black source here with the polluted delta, so that's nice. So we're looking to be in a reasonable spot here. And I think we want to go ahead and Painful Truce, draw some cards. And we're definitely going to want to search for the basic swamp here. Alright, so a lot of additional lands, which isn't what we wanted, but also a Spell Snare. We've seen our opponent play all 2-mana spells so far. And there's another 2-mana spell that we can just quickly Spell Snare. So now we'll see if we get the flip we're looking for. Off this Delver of Secrets. Basically, we're just hoping not to see a land on top at this stage of the game. And it is a Snapcaster Mage, so that's a good card, even though it's not going to enable the Delver to flip. It's still a good card to have. And we can actually just go Snapcaster plus Painful Truce here if we want to. So I think I like that. I like making that play here. So we're really just continuing to put gas in the tank, essentially. Continually drawing cards. We're not really in danger of getting burned out. We see that our opponent has a removal heavy draw here. So finally our opponent was able to get rid of that Delver, but it may be too late. We've already drawn a lot of cards. We've got pressure going. Now we've got this Tasker in hand, which we can deploy. And I think there is a strong argument for playing Tasker this turn. So I'm going to actually go ahead and put the Tasker into play. And by shocking off the water grave, it enables us to activate the Tasker. It also means we can cast Colligan's commands. So, alright, there goes a Simian Spirit Guide into an Anger of the Gods. That's pretty annoying. So that is potentially going to take care of the 2 Snapcasters. So that happens. But it looks like our opponent doesn't have an answer for the Tasker. And even if our opponent did have an answer for the Tasker, we've still got stuff to do. So I like activating Tasker here. And it looks like we got an engineered explosives, which is pretty good. We can explode this journey to nowhere if we want to. Get our Delver of Secrets back. So yeah, let's just go ahead and play the explosives for 2. And this is a commanding spot. Hard to see what our opponent could possibly do here. It would have to start with answering the Tasker, but even then, we've got 4 damage of burn already in our hand with Electrolyze and Colligan's command. And our opponent just had to fetch. So there's an Ahiri that can take care of the Tasker. But we actually have lethal if we go ahead and pop the explosives. So let's go ahead and do that. That's going to bring us back the Delver. And even if we don't flip off Delver, we have 4 points of burn in hand. So this game should be a wrap. And there's a Jataxian probe. So that's going to make things even more straightforward. And this Electrolyze is going to finish it